genetic complexity, that's for sure. You have all kinds of examples of mutants, but they're not increasing genetic complexity. For instance, this textbook shows a fly, and it says normal fruit flies have 2 wings. This mutant has 4. This rare mutation, like most mutations, is harmful. Beneficial mutations are the raw material for natural selection. Excuse me. Why don't they give an example? Why don't they show a picture of a beneficial mutation? I would like you tonight, Dr. Trivers, to name at least 2 or 3 proven beneficial mutations that increase genetic complexity. Because you would have to have trillions of those to get your theory to work, to go from a rock to a human, over 4.6 billion years. Now, the one that they always give is sickle cell anemia. Here we go. This professor said, sickle cell anemia proves evolution. Because people who get, in Africa, who get sickle cell anemia cannot get malaria, or at least are less likely to get malaria. I said, well, that's brilliant, sir. That's like saying if you cut off your legs, you can't get athlete's foot. You know, that's not an increase in genetic complexity. It's a loss of information. In both cases, it's a loss of information. It's not a gain of information. Talk about natural selection. Natural selection selects. It doesn't create a thing. And they keep using this natural selection as evidence for evolution. Natural selection is a selective process. It's not going to create anything. We go through this for days on videotape number 4. Selecting doesn't create a thing. Okay. The peppered moth is used in the textbooks as evidence for evolution. They tell the kids, they counted the moths on the trees and found it was 95% white moths and 5% black. And then when they burned coal in the factories, the trees turned black, so they counted the moths again. And now it was 5% white and 95% black. The truth of the matter is, the whole story is a phony. It didn't happen. After 40 years of watching, they found a total of 2 moths on the trees. 2. So they glued dead moths to a tree trunk to take that picture for your kid's textbook. This is a lie, been proven wrong years ago. It ought to be taken out of the textbooks. Even if it were true, it's still a moth, and it's still the same 2 colors of moth. It's a variation of the population percentage. It's not evolution. That's not evidence for evolution. But they still keep this in the textbooks because they don't have anything else. Okay, let's see. All the evidence that they give, I am convinced, has been proven wrong a long time ago. Let's see. Get a couple of things here. They tell the kids that fruit fly is evidence for evolution. They put the flies in the laboratory and nuked them and microwaved them and x-rayed them and did all kinds of mean things to make those flies have mutated babies. They got flies with curled wings. They fly around, couldn't go anywhere. They got flies with no wings. What do you call that? Crawl. You can't fly, okay? But after raising all these mutated flies, they concluded there were absolutely no improvements. The natural limits to biological change. Dr. Lester said, fruit flies refuse to become anything but fruit flies under any circumstances yet devised. Well, duh. It's true fruit flies produce a variety of babies, but every variation they got was worse off. And this guy publishes an article in U.S. News and World Report and says flies in the north have wings 4% larger than flies in the south, and that is proof of Darwin's theory. You've got to be kidding. They tell the kids to think critically. Oh, we can spend an hour on that one. They don't think critically. They don't think at all. Okay. They say evidence for evolution comes from homologous structures, from the forelimbs of birds, dolphins, and humans, from vestigial structures, and from molecules, proteins. Well, now, we could take all those again and spend all night, but the evidence for homology is right here in the textbook. It says the human has 2 bones in the wrist, called the radius and the ulna. There they are, boys and girls. And the penguin has 2 bones in his liver, called the radius and ulna. Yep, that proves we got a common ancestor. That's the message they get across in the textbooks. These homologous structures provide evidence that these animals evolved from a common ancestor. Talks about the crocodile limb, same thing. Okay, it goes over and over. Seal slipper. Here it is. Comparative anatomy provides further evidence of evolution. Commonalities suggest that these and other vertebrate animals are all related. They probably evolved from a common ancestor. Now, if somebody wants to believe that, honestly, I don't care what they believe. That's perfectly fine. But that's not science. It probably proves they have a common designer. Similarities might prove the same designer made them. Hello? It's not proof of a common ancestor. Students are never shown there are other options. They're being brainwashed, not educated. This is all over the world. There's a textbook from Latvia, one from Ireland. It's all over the world. The same stuff. In Russia, I've been to 30 countries. They use the same stuff over and over and over. Similar design might prove the same designer made them. Let's see. I'm going to run out of time. They say we've got evidence from development. This is still used in textbooks all over the world, proven wrong in 1874. Here. This guy said the similarity between early stages in development helped convince Darwin that all forms of life shared common ancestors. Darwin considered this by far the strongest class of facts in favor of his theory. What they're talking about here is the embryonic development of different creatures. This Irish textbook says the presence of fish-like structures in embryos of different species shows these animals have evolved from fish and share the basic pattern of fish development. They say the human goes through the fish stage, which they are. The evolutionary idea that sick mind Freud relied on most heavily in the manuscript is the maxim that ontogeny recapitulates phylogeny, which is the embryo goes through the gill slit process. That is, the development of the individual recapitulates the evolution of the entire species. This is baloney. It's been proven wrong 128 years ago. The embryo has these folds of skin right there, and this textbook says they have gills like a fish. That's a lie. Those are not gill slits. Those little folds of skin later develop into bones in the ear and glands in the throat. They never have anything to do with breathing. I've seen people with 5 or 6 chins, and they can't breathe through any of them but the top one. Those are not gill slits. Hegel made up this entire stupid idea right after he read Darwin's book. Darwin's book was translated to German in 1860. Hegel read it and said, what a great theory. If only we had some evidence. Hegel happened to be an embryology professor at the University of Jena in Germany. He had access to photographs and drawings of all kinds of animals in their embryonic development stage. So he took a drawing of a dog and a human and he changed them and made them look exactly alike. He lied and admitted later that he lied. He made huge posters of his fake drawings to travel all over Germany to prove evolution was a fact. Now, on top are Hegel's drawings, underneath are photographs. Actual photographs by Dr. Richardson in, what's the school in England? One of the Oxford, there's about 20 colleges in Cambridge. I was just there a few weeks ago. Anyway, I'll get it there. Okay. Hegel, at the University of Jena, his own university tried him for lying. They tried one of their professors. He said, I should feel utterly condemned were it not that hundreds of the best observers and biologists lie on the same charge. It's okay for me to lie because everybody else lies. This phylogenetic law cannot be weeded out in spite of having demonstrated to be wrong by numerous subsequent scholars. The biogenetic law is as dead as a doornail, American Scientist magazine. Here it is, St. George Hospital Medical School in London. This is the guy who took the pictures, Richardson. He said, Hegel confessed the drawing from memory and was convicted of fraud, but the drawings persist. Why did they keep this in the books? Hegel's exact chart was used in the textbook used in University of West Florida in Pensacola just last year. They're still teaching this, and it's in textbooks all over the world. Isn't it the biology book you guys have here? Do you have that with you tonight? It's in the 10th grade biology book. They're still teaching the embryo has gill slits. Now look, folks, I know it takes a while to get textbooks up to date. 125 years is long enough, okay? Tear that page out of the book, okay? Ken Miller's still using it. He teaches at Brown University in Rhode Island. I debated Ken Miller once on the radio. He won't do it again. We tried everything we can to get him to debate me again. And I appreciate you doing this again. But Ken Miller, he's using this as evidence. 1998 textbook used in Pensacola, Florida, using the embryonic gill slits. Presence of gills and tails, the gill slits on a mammal. This is simply not true. Here's a 2000 textbook, 2001 junior high textbook. The similarities provide evidence that these three animals evolved from a common ancestor. Vertebrate embryos and similar characteristics. It's used all over the place. Gills of a fish. Humans and fish embryos resemble each other because humans and fish share a common ancestor. 5 minutes, okay. Used in college textbooks. Evolutionary history of organisms is also seen in the development of embryos. Here we go again. Now look, if you have evidence for evolution,